Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. David, thanks for being willing to talk to me. Like I've heard a lot of people in my audience are really interested in your story because you have sort of a really you have a very entrepreneurial sense of how to make games, and I think a lot of game developers don't really have that, unfortunately. And I've learned a ton from you. You've like advised me. You advised me on Pinstripe's Nintendo Switch launch, which went really well, and then you also advised me on Neversong's Steam launch. And so that's sort of how I know you. Is David is really good at entrepreneurship and creating games, and not only creating them but selling them. So that's how I know you. And again, your full name is David Whaley. If people don't know you, do you want to introduce yourself and sort of give everybody an idea of what you've accomplished and achieved?
Yeah, no, that's super nice of you to say those things. Before I introduce myself, I think giving context to how I know you, I think that's important too, because
yeah, sure.
If someone like put a gun to my head and said you have to pick your favorite game developer, I'd probably pick you. And I think it started because Unity flew out a film crew to your home, right, in South Carolina.
Yeah.
And they did that sweet, like, inspiring documentary.
Oh, man, dude, they made me look so cool because I could tell you,
cool.
I could tell you I wasn't that cool. Well, like I look back and I kind of cringe on that whole experience because I felt like I was so small because I'm in South Carolina and you and I are both on the East Coast, right?
So I'm in Utah now, but
okay.
All my formative years was in the middle of nowhere in Virginia, and like my games are about that too. Like it's just about growing up in the country and like this Americana flavor of just being in the middle of nowhere where there's lots of like the trees and everything. And and when I saw that mini documentary, I was like, man, this guy is a lot like me, and he's living in the middle of nowhere. He's not in San Francisco like like a lot of other typical game developers, and it really it connected with me, and so I thought that was the coolest thing, and I loved like you were doing everything yourself. That was the other big thing, and I think that's one of the differences between me and you do it in this amazing way where everything's handmade and it's truly like all your heart is put into it, and it blows my mind. It really is like it's an amazing it's not well, thank you, but it's definitely not a healthy thing. So like that's the difference between like we were talking about San Francisco and like the East Coast or the rural Americana feel is for me like I didn't, nobody that I knew of in South Carolina, and you probably felt this way when you were in Utah, right? When you made the first tree. Right.
Correct?
Yep.
So like, I'm sure that there was a feeling of like, you kind of have to like pick yourself up. What's the phrase? Pick yourself up by your bootstraps and do it completely alone. And that's how it felt at the time. And so when all this film crew came over from Los Angeles to film, and they were hired by Unity. For me, it felt like I was I felt like a fraud. I felt like I was faking it, because you grow up in South Carolina, you don't feel like you're cool enough. You don't have enough resources. You don't know people in the industry. Mm-hmm. And what I'm learning, and I think your channel does a really good job. And by the way, guys, if you want to check out David's channel, click the link in the description. It's called Game Dev Unlocked. Mm-hmm. He's got some really cool resources. But your channel and my channel basically focus on, starting a game from scratch and doing it alone, and it's totally possible. And so you taught me, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds here, but what you taught me was after the nightmare of creating Pinstripe completely alone, everything from scratch, I learned that is cool, and it shows that it's possible, but it's not really the best way to go about it. And so I've started applying a ton of business principles that you've taught me of how to make games in an efficient way without spending, $300,000 of your salary for over the period of 5 years to make a game when you can just spend maybe $2,000 on assets from the asset store. And we can talk about all of that in this podcast. Like, really what I want to talk about this podcast is just how all of the entrepreneurial stuff that you've figured out, and how you've created a huge successful studio and sold a ton of copies just by doing it in a smart way alone. But you did make a game called First Tree, right? You want to tell the audience a little bit about that? And also, if you want to talk about your YouTube channel and just really quick so people know.
Yeah, quick rundown. I considered myself a hobbyist for a long time, and I found Unity through work, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever because, like, growing up in Virginia, I was like the only kid I knew that was making mods for all these existing old 3D games like Far Cry and Dark Forces 2 and stuff, and I loved it. Like, I loved it. It was like Legos on crack. Like, you could do anything you wanted.
And I loved it. Exactly what it feels like.
And then anyway, like, I went into film later in the school, and I love film still too. But then I found Unity. I was like, man, this is a free commercial use engine. This is mind-blowing. And then I taught myself, and then I made a really short 30-minute game called Home is Where One Starts. And I spent 18 months, and I was crappy at code, so I used Playmaker. I used a lot of assets to save me time because I just had a baby. I was working full-time, 40 hours a week. But I wanted to finish something. I was like, what's a wise shortcut I can do so I can still make a game and put my personality and my story. I'm a storyteller. Like, I wanted to tell a story.
Yeah.
But also, like, I didn't have the funds to hire anybody. It was very do-it-yourself, duct tape together a game and see how it does.
Right.
And that game, released in 2015, it did okay. Like, nothing huge. Like, it made some bonus money.
Yeah, you don't have to disclose the exact number if you don't want to. I'm just curious if you're willing to, just because a lot of people want to know how much their first games made.
Yeah.
Is that something you're willing to discuss?
Oh, sure. Like the First Tree, because there's like consoles involved. I don't like talking about that. But Home is Where One Starts. Home is Where One Starts on Steam. I did it probably took a year and a half to make $15,000. And I did a bundle deal with Indie as well. So that was like 2,000 of that $15K.
Yeah.
And
that's pretty depressing, dude.
Like, here's the thing though. I wasn't depressed. And here's why. Like, I was still I had a safe full-time job that I was still doing. It was just bonus money on top of my salary. And I was actually like, if it was full-time, yes, I would have been terrified. I would have been like sweating bullets. But like, for me, I was like, oh, sweet. This game, I was going to release it for free, by the way. I was like, I'll just release it for free on itch. That'll be cool. That'll be do. Yeah. And then someone said, I think my wife convinced me, like, just pay. It was Steam Greenlight back then. It was like, pay the $100. And I was
That's right. Yeah.
It's like $100. I don't want to spend $100. But I did it. And then it got voted in. And even 2015 is so much different than 2020 when you talk about like Steam numbers. It's insanely different. So it's still like, even back then it didn't do great, but to me, I was so excited because I was like, oh, I could build a really nice computer with this, and I saved the rest. I saved the rest of the money, and I was burnt out. And then that's when I said, I have another game idea. I have this idea about a fox and this second story that runs parallel to it about a son reconnecting with his estranged father in Alaska. And I was like, this is a cool story. I love telling stories. And I had a plan. I was like, I'm going to use assets again to save time because I was still working full time and we had another baby. Right. So, yeah, it was.
See, that's the situation I'm in now is we're about to have our second kid. And I'm like,
oh, nice.
I literally laid on the floor of my office today with my dog. I was talking to my dog. His name is Jeb. I said, Jeb, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm so exhausted. Like it's mainly entrepreneurship. It's not necessarily, and you probably know this feeling. It's not necessarily making games that wears you out while you're a dad. It's that entrepreneur feeling of like, I've got to make sure that I don't screw this up. And even when it's going good for you, like it's going good for both of us. I think we could both say that. Like things are going good financially, and finally things have stabilized for my studio. And I don't technically have to worry. But it's still there, that feeling of, okay, things are good now. Don't screw up what you've already done that's good. Like keep it going and keep doing it well. And so I always have in my head this, especially when I have 2 kids, and like you, like I think you have 2 kids, right? Do you have a third yet?
Third's coming in October.
Wow. Oh, dude, that's crazy. Really?
Then I think we're done. 3 kids is a lot.
I just do what my wife says. Like if she wants 5 kids, I have to do it. No, my second kid is arriving in October as well. Little Silas. So
that is so
congrats
exciting.
to you. That's really cool,
you.
man. I guess maybe we talked about this on Discord. I don't know, but that's pretty cool. But I guess my whole point is like, when you have people dependent on you, it changes your whole focus with game development. And I just want to encourage my audience, like if you don't have kids and you don't have people dependent on you, then have some fun. Like really go for it and make a great game, and don't worry too much about the finances. I don't know if you agree with me, but once you have kids, you got to start being more practical, or once you get married or whatever, you got to start being practical about how you create games. You can't spend 5 years full time on a game, obviously, when you're married and you have kids. You gotta, I guess you gotta provide,
Yeah. And that was something important too, is like, I had a choice. I was like, okay, I was like, man, I wish I could be like Thomas Brush and make everything. And like, cause I like composing too. I've done music before for years, and I was a technical artist at my job. Like I know how to model, I know how to do this stuff, and I love it. But like after 8 hours at a job and then taking care of kids and stuff, I was like, I still want to tell my story. I still want to release and finish my game. And I don't want to neglect my family. And that's something entrepreneurs of all kind, they have that problem, right? Of course, just 80-hour weeks, and they're not seeing their kids at all. And I really didn't want to do that, obviously, but
me neither.
But that's why I need to compromise my vision. This is what I tell some of my viewers too. I'm like, it's okay to compromise your vision if you're getting like 90% of the way there. Like if you're almost there and it's not totally perfect, then finish it anyway, because finishing and releasing a game is by far the best way to learn. That's how you teach yourself game dev, is to finish a project, because it takes discipline. Like making the first tree and then being a dad and working full time, it was not fun after a while. And that's why I totally agree with you. Like if you're just single and you're going to school or something, that is like the season to just dive in and work your butt off. It was hard. I even like right now I'm thinking back on it, I'm like, how did I do that?
I feel the same way, man. Like I was a bad husband at the time. We didn't have kids when I was making Pinstripe. Like you can ask my wife. I was so involved and so obsessed with getting everything perfect with that game. And I look back on it, like you said, you've got to compromise. And I want your audience and I want my audience to know, like, it's similar to the feeling of like when you're in a fight with a family member, or you're in a fight with a friend or your spouse or something. It's really heated and you're seeing red, right? Mm-hmm. And you just want to win that argument. That same feeling is what it is for me when I want to get something right with a game. I'm not necessarily I'm not necessarily rational in decision making. And so I look back on all the decisions I made with Pinstripe, and I'm like, why did I spend so much time on those things? Like little tiny things to make it my way. And I look back on it and I'm like, people don't care about those tiny little things. Now, obviously it's a balance. Like if you had decided to not make the fox in First Tree look so beautiful, then, and just I think the fox is really what sold that game. And by the way, if my audience doesn't know, that game is really popular on Switch, Steam. Did you release on Xbox and PS4?
Yeah, it's on, not on mobile, but everywhere else. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're, in terms of like success, like you've nailed it, and you've done a really good job with promoting that game and selling it. But if you hadn't focused on, I think if you hadn't focused on making that fox as beautiful as it was, then I don't think that game would have sold as well as it did. So there's certain things to not compromise on and certain things to compromise on, and understanding where those things should be compromised, I think is what separates the great developers from the failed ones.
Yeah, you know? I really like that thought. And I think a way to figure out what you can and can't skip is to release games. And that's my first game. Yeah, it was a financial failure. Like, I was happy I did it, but I wasn't quitting my job. I was like, okay, I'll just keep doing my thing. That's cool. But what it taught me things, and I was able to use that data. It was real data to say, okay, here's what I did wrong. I didn't market it. I didn't have a lead character to rally around like a fox. It was a first person game. That made a huge difference. It wasn't as colorful, and I think those things that helps grab attention in a Steam thumbnail. It was lots of little things, and I guess maybe, I think every game developer has to be an entrepreneur of some kind, but I'm very analytical, and I'm saying like, okay, that didn't work. Here's why did that not work? And it was satisfying to be like, I made a list of like, okay, here's the stuff I want to fix for the first tree. Like, I want to market it regularly. I want I want to spend a lot of time on the fox because that's the focal point of the whole game. But other things, I was like, okay, I can't do that. I can't compose all the music. I'm going to license the music. I can't do the sound effects and go out in my backyard and like make jumping sound effects with rocks or whatever. I have to license those. It was a lot of stuff, and it's still, and you might not like this, Thomas, but I thought I was terrified of using all the assets because I just knew everyone would know, right?
Yeah, totally. I totally know the feeling.
Everyone would know. I was like, oh, I'm an asset flipper, even though I tried hard to I tried really hard to modify them, but it was still the same geometry, same meshes.
Yeah.
But
the reason why I don't do asset, like I've pretty much decided I'm probably not going to be an asset flip kind of guy. Mm-hmm. The reason why I don't is because the things that I'm really gifted at are illustrate. Like, I don't know where your giftings are or where your talents are. It's probably storytelling, and setting the mood, those things. And you also said you're really interested in music. Yeah. I'm not really sure where you believe all of your skill sets are. But for me, it's definitely in the art side of things. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like it would be a mistake for me to pull away from where I'm gifted and what really separates my style out from others. But the thing is that I'm totally fine using assets that are like code assets and back end assets. So what I tell my audience is find out where your gifting is, where you're talented, and lean heavily into that, making that custom. But everything else that you feel like you're not your strong suits, it's just like a regular business, right? You need to outsource it. You need to hire people. Well, in our case, we probably can't afford to hire a couple people for our studios. So go quote unquote hire people by just buying their assets on the asset store. And they actually will help you out. Like, if you email these developers, you just spent $20 on an asset. And I learned this from you, by the way, because we had a meeting in, I think it was a year ago, and you told me all about your mentality with assets. I started downloading certain assets that I use now, and I'll email these developers, and they will treat me like I'm their boss almost. They'll help me out and write custom stuff for that asset and help me out, which is insane.
You're using third-person controller, right? By Opsive?
Yeah, I was using that. There was a couple things. He helped me really?
So much with the Fox issues, because I was like one of the first people to put a quadruped, an animal, as the controller. And he was
Did you really?
Yeah, like, and he added
That's
stuff
awesome.
later to make it more compatible, but I found out a lot of stuff, and so he helped me a ton. And I like to think maybe I gave him some information so he can make the asset better. And but no, you're totally right, and that's the cool part about this internet age is there's all these resources, and you're helping these other developers, and they make a living by selling in bulk, right? They sell by quantity with these licensing these assets. And it's cool. Like, you can go to all these like freesound.org. Like, a lot of them just ask to be credited, and you have whole sound studios and musicians and everything at your fingertips right from the internet. It's this new age of just, you can be a one-man mega studio in a way by crowdsourcing all these people's help and paying them what they request, which is usually like, I don't know, $50 for a Unity asset or $50 for licensing a song on Audio Jungle or Pond 5 or whatever. So it's exciting. And Yeah, and I was gonna say about, I was always terrified about the environment packs. Like everyone would notice, and the fact is, I read maybe 10,000 comments over the course of a few years, like from Reddit and emails and Twitter. Not all of them, but only like a handful, like 5 to 10 people said, "Oh, that's that nature pack from Unity."
Right.
No one really cared. And Pinstripe, I loved Pinstripe. I played it with my girl. Like I'd get Evelyn on my lap and we go play. I'd be like, "Hey, what game do you want to play?"
Really?
Yeah, I'd be like, we could play East Shade, or we could play this game. And she always said, "Pinstripe. I want to play Pinstripe." And as an artist, I noticed all your touches and I was amazed by it, and that's why you're one of my favorite devs. But I want you to to know, like, it's hard because the lay person, like the gamer who just wants to have a good time and feel some feels, go on a feels trip or whatever. Because I make emotional games. I think you make games with a lot of heart too. They're story driven.
Right. I think that's what they want. Indies. Well, it depends. Like, it really depends on where your target market is. Like right now, I think I've made two like feels games, like that have heavy stories, very emotional, poignant endings. And I think what I'm going to do, and you've kind of gone down this path as well, is I want to try and make some money in the game industry this year. And like make this year, like maybe that's not what you're doing, but like in terms of making, your courses. But for me, this year, I want to focus on the business side of things, the entrepreneurship side of things, of how do I maybe do a little bit of experimentation. So for me, I'm going to try and hit like 4 games or 3 games in the next year and a half. Just pop them out. Like,
that's awesome.
Fun little short games. Because I want to see what happens, right? I mean, I think it's important for game developers to, this is something I was actually wanting to talk to you about, is I'm of the opinion that indie game developers tend to take themselves way too seriously. Like for me, I used to be like, I'm going to be a prophet of the game industry. Like I'm going to make, or like a poet, like I'm going to be the one who makes games that really hit people in the feels and change people's lives. And what I've learned is I think I'm taking myself a little bit too seriously. I think I just need to make games and people are going to enjoy them. And maybe I'll look back one day and say that, it was better for me to focus on super highly emotional games that change the world as opposed to just fun games, short fun games. Maybe I'll look back and say that. But right now, I don't know the answer. I don't know what my role is or my calling is in the game industry. And I think that, like you said, it's important to just release games and not take yourself so seriously. Like for you could have been really cocky and said, I'm not going to use any assets from the asset store. But instead you were like, no, I just need to get this done. And I think that is the minority of game developers, the way that they think. Most game developers are way too principled. They care way too much about doing things from scratch, and it leads them to never release stuff and never finish stuff.
I think those principles can be, if you're too stubborn with your principles, it can be dangerous if it never leads to you finishing and releasing a game.
Right.
And yeah, I used to beat myself up a lot. I think every creative, they have the imposter syndrome. Yeah. And of course I did, because I was like, throwing this stuff together because I wanted to tell my story, but it wasn't high art enough. It wasn't principled enough. And me and my wife, she's an artist, and she's a traditional artist. She does collage with paper, and it's fine art.
Oh, that's awesome.
And she's awesome. She's done, she's in galleries and stuff, and we have these conversations all the time. Like, what's the balance between art and commercialization? And it's hard. I don't know if I know all the answers, but I know, like, I love telling my story. I don't want to rip people off, but I want to use these resources available from the asset store, and I want to make them original somehow. And I would rather a game that's imperfect be released than not released at all. And then no one would know that story, even if it was even if it's not as high art or as principled as other games, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that was like kind of the decisions I had to make. Those are I call them like compromising your vision a little bit. And I'm glad I did, because if I didn't, my life would have never changed from releasing my imperfect, honest, beautiful game, The First Tree.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad I did that.
That's why if you're listening to this and you're 20 years old, don't take this advice. But I tend to tell a lot of people, like, go start a family, because when you have a family, suddenly your games are not your babies anymore.
Babies are your babies.
Exactly.
That's true.
Your babies are your babies. And maybe if you don't want to get married or don't want to have a family or whatever, then instead maybe start volunteering somewhere or helping out in a community, like being with people as opposed to just working on your game. Because in reality, it's not even your game at that point. It's just you focusing on you. It's like all self-consumed. What am I trying to tell the world? What's my game supposed to be about? How much money is my game going to make? And I've been in that mentality even now sometimes, of being super like selfish of how I make games. And then all of a sudden I'll go hang out with my daughter or my wife. Or like yesterday I went and saw an ultrasound of my baby boy, Silas. Like all of a sudden that feeling of my games are all about me is stripped away, and it's like no, my games don't belong to me. They belong to the people who play them. They belong to my family in the sense that it provides for them. They're really not mine. And I think that that's a really good way to approach game development, because you don't get so panicky about every little decision. It's much more relaxed. And I learned a ton of that from you in our call last year, because your approach to games is so, what's the word? It's you're objective about your games. It's, at least it seems that way. You're very business minded. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I feel. My perception.
No, I guess I don't think of it like that. I guess, but you know what it is, and I never even considered myself like an official entrepreneur. Put in my LinkedIn profile, entrepreneur, like hustle, like hashtag hustling or whatever. But it is like, that's what it became after I quit my day job, because The First Tree did well enough, because I'm super risk averse. I was like, I'm not going to quit unless we have money in the bank and we have enough that we can live off for a few years. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try this. But the business stuff, I don't know. I do think having dependence and providing for your family, that changes everything. Yeah. But also at the end of the day, you want to make, you want to make this game that you love, but I don't know. I try to explain it to people like there's imagine 3 circles in a Venn diagram, and you're trying to find the perfect idea of a game that you're passionate about in one of the circles.
Yep.
A game that you're actually able to make with your resources, and then a game in the third circle, the game that will actually market well, or that has like a hook that people actually want to pay money for. And that's like the magic. That's the magic ingredient. If you can find a game idea that fits all 3 of those circles, put it in the middle, then you have something special, and you need to just chase it. And I guess like discipline comes into entrepreneurship, or you just work even when you don't want to. But yeah, like the idea of like hitting the finish line, that's really important to me. And I think that's also why. That's also why. Like I didn't want to like give up, and I also had a plan, and that's why I wanted to do things fast, because if I don't finish this, then all the work was for nothing. And I knew finishing was rewarding, because I released a really small game beforehand. And that's why I tell people over and over and over again, like, finish a game so you can finish a game. Then you can go do that in your next game. Then you learn from that, and you do your 3rd game and 4th game. And if you do that, I really don't see how you can't find critical and financial success. It will take a while, but it will definitely happen.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about, I've been curious what that feeling was like when The First Tree just went gangbusters. It did really, really well on its Steam launch. And I remember when we were talking, when I first met you, you still were working your day job when it went really well, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So what was that process like? Because you said you're risk averse.
Yes.
For me, I would have just quit my job immediately, like on launch day, seeing the numbers come in. You know, what was that like?
Yeah.
That process.
Oh man, I took a day off. I took a day of PTO to launch my game.
Just one day.
Yeah, just one day.
Yeah.
So yeah, Steam released late 2017, and here's the thing: like I was like crossing my fingers, that it would go popular. It would be popular, and by popular I meant it would hit the front page of Steam.
Yeah.
All of my efforts for like a year of marketing was for one day, and that was launch day. I wanted it to hit the front page of in the new and trending tab.
Yeah.
And so it happened, and I had a game plan. I had I call it my launch Blitz checklist.
Right, and you actually helped me out with my launch with Neversong.
Yeah.
I actually used your course, which again, for my audience, it's in the description. I used David's course to teach me sort of the things, like you said, the launch Blitz checklist. And I used that for Neversong. And I mean, like clockwork, man. I was on the front page for 5 days.
That was exciting. 5 days. 5 days was, dude. It was the same as me. 5 days on the front page of Steam with the first tree. And of course, like you are like an extremely hard worker. Like that was you. That was your YouTube channel. Like all your fans.
I don't know,
are what
man.
made it happen.
I don't know. I was talking to another developer on the phone yesterday. I was talking to Joe Russ. Yeah, he made a game called Jenny LeClue. And he was like, man, it seems like...
That's a great game.
He's like, man, it seems... I actually talked about you to him on the phone. I said he needs to get in contact with you because there's a lot to learn for all of us.
He's awesome.
I was talking to... He's really just a fascinating and brilliant game developer.
Definitely.
But he said on the phone, he was like, man, it seems like you just work all the time. Like, you're doing YouTube and you're making games. And I just admitted to him, and I'll admit it to you now, I work 7 hours a day lately.
Nice.
Like,
no, that's good, right?
I wake up. It is good. I mean, I think I wake up at 8:30 lately. I get off at 5 o'clock. I'll work out in the middle of my day. So I take an hour and a half off, and
cool.
It's like what I'm learning is I need to start rewarding myself a little bit. I don't have to be in the grind all the time. Like my wife was like, I was telling my wife, I was like, I feel like I'm not working enough. And she was like, well, why did you work so hard at the beginning? And I was like, I guess to achieve this. And she was like, yeah, so enjoy it. So
that's good. That's
just
good advice.
That's a little side note. I don't work that much anymore. And it's because I've learned to work smarter, you know?
No, that's good.
And a lot of that was with your advice, and also the course you did.
Good.
Just really helpful.
I'm glad it helped. And honestly, I was working full time, and then I do about 10 hours a week on my game. So it was 50-hour weeks for a few years. Like not extra, but it wasn't impossible. Now I'm full time.
10 hours, on the first tree.
I just did 10 hours a week, like maybe 10 to 14, because I'd work on a Saturday.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's doable. And that's why it sucks when people ask me, they're like, oh, I want to do it your way. I want to make a game, but I'm working 50, 60-hour weeks at my day job. I'm like, I don't think you can do it. Like, I don't think that's possible. Like, I think maybe quit, get another day job that's 40 hours a week.
Yeah, dude. I've heard that's the norm. And maybe people in the comments can let us know how much they're working. But I had a job where my boss was like, you shouldn't be working more than 40 hours. And so we would clock out at all of us. There was 25 employees. We would clock out at 5 o'clock every day. Mm-hmm. And that's what allowed me to go home and have the energy to make Pinstripes.
Absolutely.
You know?
So that isn't important. I like putting that disclaimer out there because, I was working full time, but I wasn't doing crunch. Like, I'm not like at Rockstar Games or Naughty Dog, and they're like killing themselves all the time. You can't make an indie game on that kind of schedule in your free time.
Well, it's just not. I don't think it's possible to have that kind of creative energy.
No, you're right.
It's just not. So,
but now, like, I'm full time now, which is still crazy to me, and I do about 7 hours a day. You're when it's your own business, you're so much more productive than if you're doing meetings all day at an office. It's very productive 7 hours, I would say.
I agree. I really do agree. And I've learned that when you're working in an 8-hour day at a desk job, you're going to BS your way through the day. So you're just going to, I used to jump on social media and just sort of chill a little bit and take my time, because I knew the deadline was for a project was like 2 weeks. So I would make it happen in 2 weeks when I really probably could have got it done in a week, you know?
Right. I think everyone does that a little bit. There's overhead to when working with that many people in a company. Yeah. There's red tape.
But when you quit your job and jumped into running your own studio, I'm sure you felt like this desire to be like, okay, I can't screw this up. I got to work hard and get things done, right?
Yeah, it's scary. What gives me a little bit of relaxation is that we have savings, and that if disaster happened, we would be okay for a couple years, and then I'd be like, okay, I'm getting another day job. We ran out of money.
Yep.
It's stressful. It's the entrepreneur part of being an indie game developer, and that's why. And I think this is cool because you're doing the same thing. You have your fingers in a lot of pies, because not one source of income can really support a mortgage and children. Children are expensive. Right. Houses are expensive. Yes, they are. So I like what you're doing, and this kind of goes back to Game Dev Unlocked, is I want to diversify just income streams, because honestly, that's what a lot of content creators do nowadays. Like even YouTubers, they'll just say like, oh yeah, ads, barely anything. We got merch, we got Patreon, we got all sorts of other little things. And so Game Dev Unlocked, it came from this idea of me, like, I love to help people. I answer emails every day from people who...
you're totally different than me.
It's hard because my YouTube channel has been exploding, and now I'm getting to a breaking point. But I love helping people, and that's why I spoke at GDC. I couldn't wait to like explain everything I learned about the first tree, because I wanted to help other developers, because I kept getting emails and they were like, how did you do it? This is so inspiring. I'm like, well, it's a lot of luck, but luck isn't the only thing. There's a lot of hard work involved in like analysis and data. So Game Dev Unlocked was like, okay, I can answer emails all day for the rest of my life, or I can make this learning resource and make it really good, like put in, tons of money and time into this online school that answers. It's everything I've learned, like every little thing I've learned, I put into Game Dev Unlocked. And there's the paid school, which again, that will help sustain my family. But I also want to do like YouTube videos, like what you're doing. Like I love that you're sharing it with the world. It's exciting to talk to these excited newcomers with game development.
Oh yeah. And that's what I've learned is people are game development is apparently like a rock star job title. It is weird, because it's like, no, I'm just like a sweaty nerd sitting in front of a computer all day. Like what someone commented on one of my videos, said I looked like a Philly cheesesteak. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means, but I can gather that it's just game developers and like myself, we just sit in front of a computer all day and just get greasy while we make games. Like it's the complete.
I saw the hobo comment. They're like, you look like a trained hobo.
People think I look like a pothead hobo Philly cheesesteak. But my whole point in saying that is that it isn't a rock star job in the slightest. It's really cool when you launch a game and people love it. But I learned that, I talked to some guy came over to my house to spray for spiders and bugs, and he just talked to me. He was a young kid and just wanted to talk about game development. He thought it was so cool. And
that's the best feeling.
Yeah, people love it. And what I've learned is it's really cool, sounds cool, and it is cool. Like you and I have a really cool job. Like it's awesome. But like you said, you really have to, if you want to be successful, you've got to have your finger in a lot of different pies. And you've got to learn to be okay with taking your time on things that aren't necessarily glamorous to keep your studio going. Like all of us can't be as successful as you. Even though you're still putting your fingers in a lot of pies, you don't necessarily have to. But for me, for a while, I had to do that. Like I had to do YouTube and Patreon. And so what's the list for me? It's Patreon, YouTube ads, YouTube sponsorships, Kickstarter campaigns every like 2 or 3 years, revenue from all different platforms, and then I would take on freelance every once in a while. So there's just a ton of different places that the revenue is dripping in from, and it adds up. And I don't know, like, do you have any advice for my audience about various places that they can be picking revenue from while they're launching their game? Let's say they've launched their game and it's not making enough money. Do you have any ideas for them about picking revenue from various places, or should they just keep their job?
Oh man, it's a big question because it's different. It's different for everybody. Here's what worked for me. Even I'll go back, kind of going back to that original question. When the first Tree launched on Steam, it did well. I still didn't quit my job because I was so scared. And I made like low 6 figures. But after taxes, and then I was like, wow, what can we use this money for? Let's put a down payment on a house. That was the big thing. Yeah. Almost a ton of the money went to that, and then it was gone.
Good.
I still had a mortgage and stuff. It wasn't that much money.
Oh, really? So you took the money so you're saying you took the money from First Tree and put it into a house?
Yeah, just
That's
a down
awesome,
payment.
Dude.
Just a down payment of a house.
Yeah.
And that was really cool.
It's a huge investment.
Yeah. It was scary because I'd never spent that much money on something, but it felt like the right thing to do with their family. And then,
correct. And then I did the same thing with Pinstripe, by the way.
Cool.
We were able to put like 20% into a house as a down payment. But it also put us into this really risky position of like, okay, can I still support the family though? Full-time game dev, but anyway.
Yeah. And so I still kept my job because I was really enjoying it too. I was at the Void VR like interactive thing in Utah.
Cool. That's awesome.
But it's funny like how even like a dream launch scenario, the money can run out that fast. And so I still didn't quit my job. But then it wasn't until console launch, which that was a scary thing. And here's another reason, Thomas, why you're my favorite game developer. You introduced me to Matthew Tai from Do Games. He is one of the best people I've met.
He makes your life so much easier.
He's a genius, and he's so polite and nice.
He is.
And
he is.
He helped me. Like, he took on the First Tree, and I told him, I was like, because I do things the wrong way, it's the worst Unity project you've ever seen in your life. And he's like,
I told him the same thing, man.
And I told him, I was like, and I'm crap at C#, so it's a lot of Playmaker stuff. And he was like, okay, I think we could work around that.
Yeah.
And he made it happen. And I self-published on consoles. That was the hardest thing I've done. And that's the hardest thing I've done in my career. And it really pushed me to the breaking point because I was still working full-time. We had 2 babies. But I was able to do it. And we were launched on console. And then I was like, okay, now I can quit my job. So I think I want to tell your viewers, going back to your question, it's each rung on the ladder is small. Like, it's step by step. It's not going to seem like a lot, but then eventually you'll get to the top of this ladder, which is like financial freedom or ability to quit your job. But me personally, like, the Game Dev Unlocked way I tell people is don't quit your job. Like, it's so risky out there. It is hard for new game developers. It's harder than it was for me in 2017. A lot has changed. And that's why I say, like, okay, if you can make a game wisely, like time efficiently, and you take wise shortcuts, and then you can still work your full-time job or even do part-time, do 20 hours a week, then you could like still work on your game and not get burnt out and not neglect your family. Right. So that's like, I think personally, I would not quit a job, even if you made like a few thousand from your game, you're like, oh, it might go up. Like, after launch, it's probably not going to go up. Like, you just need to make more games. And that's one of my favorite quotes is from a book about Pixar, Creativity Inc. Have you read that?
No, but I've watched like YouTube summaries of it, and it's what helped Pinstripe's story come to fruition.
No way. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I believe so. I could be wrong, but I watched some really, really helpful Disney videos there were summaries of how they do storytelling. But
oh, that's cool. I love that. It's a great book. I think you'd like it. And there's a part where there's the brain team at Pixar's animation studios, and they talk about one of the most important things you can do as a creative is to fail early and fail fast. Yep. And that's why, like, I love Pinstripe, but I start to get like anxiety. I get an anxiety attack that you worked on it for 5 years. It seriously like freaks me out. Like, I couldn't have done that and I would have given up, and you kept with it, which is why your achievement is monumental. But it was not, you were not failing fast or failing early. It was just scary to like that you did that. And I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think that you're right. And I think that I used to do videos of like go for it, solo developers. You could achieve your dreams. Quit your job. You've got this. And that was like immediately after I did a Kickstarter campaign with Pinstripe and some money came in and I signed with a publisher. So it really helped out. And I felt good. I felt like I had done it, but looking back in hindsight, I'm like, I wouldn't wish 5 years of solo development on anybody. That it's really hard, and I'd have, my dad was really supportive, but and there was a lot of people around me who were like, you've got this, Thomas. But after 4 years of working on it, I remember my dad was like, what are you doing? Like, are you good? He called me on the phone. I remember I was in my car at our rental home, and I was like 23 or something. I don't even remember. And I was just on my phone, and he said, you got to finish this, Thomas. Like, oh man, you're making me nervous. And my brother said the same thing. I have 3 older brothers. One of my brothers was like, are you going to finish the game? And I realized at that point that, all right, this is enough. Like, it's time to wrap this up. And so I scrambled to get it done. And that is, I think, the point of, again, separating out successful game developers from failed ones, which is you got to just start finishing stuff, and you've got to get it done. Mm-hmm. There's really not a lot of value, I don't think, in making a really great game over the course of 5 to 10 years of your life. Like, that's a huge gamble. Not everyone's going to be, what was it, Owlboy or Stardew Valley? One of those games took forever, and they got really, they made a great game. Yeah, they made a great game, but they got lucky. I mean, lucky in the sense that, one, from a launch perspective, and just getting the visibility at the right time, but they were also lucky that their vision was good, and they had good instincts. Most game developers, they don't have the luck of good instincts and good vision. And so you've really got to form that over a long period of time of releasing content and reading, like you said, reading comments. Thousands of comments that turn your stomach upside down. Yeah,
I hate it. I try not to anymore, but you just can't help. You just can't help it when like a Reddit post going viral. You just got to look a little bit.
Oh, dude, you said the word Reddit just now, and literally my stomach, like I got a pain in my stomach.
I'm gonna be sick. I need to go.
Yeah, well, it's Reddit. Okay, so what I've learned, and maybe we could talk about this from a marketing perspective, because you're a marketing genius. Reddit is the place to catch fire, but it's also terrifying because it can it can catch fire and then start like collapsing into dust. Your Reddit post into ash with like just comments of people that could be rude or mean or put ill will on you or make you feel like a fraud. Yes. It's the same is true with Twitter. Twitter is a mess.
Yes. But I got death threats for making a Fox game, and I just don't think that's right.
wait, what? Where?
Twitter on Reddit. Like when you have every like, bored internet troll and you're on the front page, you're an easy target, and so people are just like, I'm gonna kill you for making this stupid indie game or something. I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember. It's probably not. It's probably shouldn't laugh about it, but I don't know what else to do. Like, it's just that's what happens when everyone's targeting you.
I laugh because that's like the only thing I can do, because when I've been with your help, by the way, with your advice, I've been front page 3 times on Reddit.
3 times.
And
nice.
3 times, and I think 2 of them was with your advice of like, make sure your GIF looks this way and make sure you've got a cool title, and it drove sales. Like, we had a really good Switch launch with Pinstripe. But one of the common comments I get on Reddit and Twitter is like, why do we need all these stupid hipster games? Like, why do we need all these trendy, artsy fartsy games? Why do they all look the same? And I get it. Like, it's a good comment. I mean, it makes sense if you're not into those kinds of games. But people can be hurtful, and people can be hurtful on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is I've been making games for 10 years, but it's been like 4 years of actually being exposed to a community critiquing me.
Right.
Even after 4 years, I still, like, last night, somebody said something on Twitter or something, and it really bugged me. It like kind of hurt me. And I like reached out to them like, hey, what's going on? Like, can we talk about this? Things still bother me. And so my skin is not thick enough yet. And I need to keep putting out content. So hopefully one day it won't bother me so much. And a lot of indie developers out there are scared of one single comment that crushes their ego,
I would say that was me. And I'm still like, I'm just really sensitive emotionally.
Yeah, me too.
And I've gotten better because I'd rather feel uncomfortable or get a hateful comment if that means that people who do love my game find my game. And that's what you got to remind yourself. Like, I could focus on the negative reviews on Steam, and they probably have a lot of good points. Like, my game's not perfect. But then I think about all the people, like, I get the most amazing messages from people all over the world, and they're like, you saved me from like a really dangerous depression. I thought I was going to kill myself. Like, your game helped you helped bring me out of that. Thank you. You'll always have my debt. I will take 500 million hateful messages if it means that like a handful of people are like, you like saved me. You like, I don't know. Like, I got another email last week. This mother with a little girl with severe autism, like, she has a really hard time connecting with people, and she doesn't talk much. And she just said, like, she just plays my game all day, and now, like, she's happier and she's talking more, and that she's reaching out to people and giving hugs more, and it just blew my mind. And
that's amazing, man. That's so cool.
It's the best feeling in the world. And I know, like, people, it's a free country. They can hate my game. They can hate how I make my games. They can hate that it's artsy. But I'm making the game I wanted to make, like, 100%. And it's amazing. Like, I feel I'm very blessed. I'm very fortunate that people liked it too. I got lucky. I put a lot of work in, but I got lucky as well, and I'm really fortunate. And I think you would say you're fortunate and lucky too.
Yeah, no, I am. I'm really lucky. I'm mainly lucky because, a lot of people think of themselves, and this might be a little bit too philosophical for some people in the audience. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But, I like to think that my fortitude got me through game development, and I pushed through, and I worked hard.
You did. That is true.
It is true. It's one of the dominoes that fell, but there were a ton of other dominoes that fell. I'm really blessed and lucky that I was born into a family where my dad told me that I could do this stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, my dad was really encouraging. I remember when I released Coma, my first game, which was a Flash game, in 2010 or 2009, I released that game, and it made like $10,000. Like, whoa, where did that come from? And we went out to lunch, and he was like, you should try this, like, do this as a job. And I don't know if I would have done that if he hadn't told me to give it a shot, and believed in me. And I hope that people like you and me can be that sort of figure to people who don't have that, and we can say, you can actually do this. You can make games, and mentor people. I know I've mentored a few people, and my goal is to just say, you can do this. You don't, like you say, you don't have to quit your job. You don't have to go nuts. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be this crazy entrepreneur. You don't have to be crazy talented. All you got to do is have some discipline, some follow through, and make a small make a small game, make another one, and like you said, you're climbing the ladder.
Yeah.
And hopefully hopefully, you get to the top of that ladder and then you find another one, or I don't know how long the ladder is. I guess the ladder depends on what you want to achieve.
Yeah.
But I just
got my
hard,
first, you're right. I was just thinking about the new ladder, and you're very, you have a high quality YouTube channel, established fan base, but I just got partnered, which was a really big deal to me because I've always wanted to do YouTube. It's kind of been like another dream of mine. And I just
it's blowing up for you, man.
Oh, it's crazy. But I got like I got $10 in ad revenue. So I went to Taco Bell and got a $5 box. And I'm like, yes. YouTube ad revenue paid for my Taco Bell. That was a good feeling. It's like the little wins that want to make you keep going.
Yep.
And stuff.
And those little wins. No, I was just gonna say those little wins are little drips of income that slowly create a pond, and maybe an ocean. Who knows?
Exactly. It is drop by drop. And, you weren't successful the first game. I can't think of one like mega hit indie developer that was the first game was all that and made,
I can't either. What about Jonathan Blow?
He made a ton of games before that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Before Braid. I do feel like Braid was like his major release where he hired an artist and stuff, but he has tons of games before that.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I had released, and this is something the people listening, the audience listening to this need to realize is, you're right. Most game developers are going to spend, several years, maybe 3 years, just sort of goofing off, making weird games, releasing them, getting bad reviews. I know Coma was my first game in quotes there, but before that I had other games that I had released on newgrounds.com that were junk, I released horrible. I'm going to do a video about it on my channel soon. I want to show all my first mods that I released. Yeah. And they're the worst. In fact, it's community from 2000, like 2001. It's like 20 years old. And everything's still there, including the user comments. Yeah. And they're always like the meanest thing, saying like, this isn't even a level. It should be removed. Yeah. It was something like I worked my butt off on. It's part of the process. You fail a ton. Yeah. And that's okay. And you just keep making stuff. And, you need your love for it. You want to do the things you love. But if you love making games, then just keep doing it. It will work out. I remember it when I was at my day job. I had to print out quotes and stick them all over my cubicle of like quotes about failure and why failure is good, because I felt like a failure all the time because I had, until you release your first game or your second game, you don't really know who you are in terms of a game developer. Mm-hmm. You don't know what you're capable of. I keep forgetting that. Like, I have a view of myself right now in my head, and it's based on years of experience of discovering my talents as a game developer from feedback, right? Mm-hmm. But when you don't have that feedback, you don't know who you are as a game developer, if you're even capable of making something good. And so it's those failures that are going to inform you of what you're good at, what you're not good at, and where to get some help, where to download some assets, and where not,
Absolutely. It's cool. It's real-time data. And I don't know, I've worked for companies where they pay like 6 figures to get useful data like that, but for an indie developer, you can get data just by releasing a simple game, looking at engagement, looking at your analytics. So when the first tree launched on Steam, I had an inkling it would do well. I didn't know, so I was still like sick to my stomach. But I knew because I'd posted GIFs regularly for like over a year. And I kept posting. I was like, okay, that actually went viral. That Twitter GIF went viral. Oh, I got on the Reddit front page. I think that's a good sign. It was data, really. It said, okay, there's interest. And that's why I was like, I need to finish this because now I have this information that tells me, hey, people might want to buy it. And that's like, and I kept it, it's just, maybe that's where like the entrepreneur, like the business minded stuff comes, because you want to marketing isn't like this evil thing. It's not this dirty word. It's just finding people that will love your product. And you just need to tell them, hey, my product exists. Thank you for telling me. I love it. I'm so glad you told me. To me, that's marketing. You need to find that audience.
Right. And what are some things that you did for First Tree? What are some marketing things that you did? Did you do a lot of prep? Like, did you spend a year just putting out GIFs? How long was the marketing process, I guess? What did you do?
Man, yeah, it's a big question. Really simply, I started with the visuals first development style, where I was like, and because I'm more of an artist anyway, I was making the visuals first, so I had stuff to show first.
Yeah.
And then I'd fine tune like gameplay mechanics and level design later. But yeah, so I had stuff as soon as possible. I set up a Steam store page as soon as possible and a website, because that's how you funnel. That's right. That's how you funnel in people who are interested. You have a place for them to go and to give them your email or a wish list on Steam. So you need those places. And then I marketed concurrently during development. So I'd work on my game for about 7 hours a week, and then I'd make GIFs for 2 to 3 hours a week. And I usually posted. Dude. Yeah, I usually posted in a variety of places. I tried them all, really. Like Tumblr, Twitter, Imager, Reddit, 9gag even, which actually had a few viral GIFs on 9gag.
I remember you gave me the list. I was like, what's 9gag?
It's just a meme
Is it like
site.
4chan?
No, yeah. not 4chan, but it's that. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. But 4chan it's just a meme site where you can submit stuff.
Cool.
And I learned what helped, because I had analytics, right? I could look at my email list or my wish list and be like, okay, Imager got me a lot of wish lists. Maybe I'll keep focusing on that then.
Yeah.
And maybe the best way to put it is, and this applies to any creative job really, like it includes YouTube, it includes game development. I think the ability to honestly self-evaluate and to pivot is one of the greatest indicators of success.
Man, dude, it seems so simple, but most people don't look at themselves from a objective point of view.
Mm-hmm. You're right. It's hard. And I guess maybe it comes, I don't know, maybe it comes a little easier for me. I don't know. I just know that it's cutthroat out there. You need to do everything in your power to stand out, because the floodgates are open. Like, game development's been democratized.
It's crazy.
And it's cool. I love that. Dude. I love that.
Yeah.
But it means it's hard. You have to show off your feathers, like get attention. Like you have to shout almost, say, "Hey, look at my game." And it's
one
hard
of
for
your
like
pieces of advice to me with Neversong, with marketing. You said, don't beg your audience to wishlist the game, Thomas, but kind of do. You got to really put yourself out there, and it can feel embarrassing, but you've got to sell it. You've got to sell it, because otherwise you won't.
You wear a lot of You wear a lot of hats. Like, you're a solo entrepreneur, solo game developer, and I know actually you worked with Serenity Forge. They're awesome.
And I'll probably keep doing that. I love partnering with studios now.
That's awesome.
As long as I can be the art director, I love partnering. It's just it goes so much faster.
See, that's something I'm actually looking into. That's something I'll probably be asking you in the future, because for the first time, I want to do something like that.
Yeah, it's I actually talked to a pretty big studio. People would know the name, and I just can't say who it is. They said that they're considering making that part of their business plan, just partnering up with developers.
Cool.
And so behaving as it's like instead of going and hiring developers, you just say, "Hey, let's split the revenue, make a game twice as fast."
Oh, cool. That's interesting.
So anyway,
that's exciting. Yeah. You wear a lot of hats as a game developer, and one of those hats, you're a salesman. And I hate sales personally, but I love making games and I want people to play them. So I'll wear that hat reluctantly, but I'll wear it so people play my game. And also so I can feed my children. That's important.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I've learned, this is going to be so bad, but I don't care. The older I get, the more fun it is to make money. Like when I was younger, I didn't really think about money. It didn't really cross my mind. And the older I get, it's like, yeah, let's do some marketing today and see if we could sell some games. It's just a little bit funner. I don't know why. I think it's probably just having a family or whatever, but it shouldn't be a bad thing to want to make some money, because it means you can make games because you make money,
Oh yeah. Like my home is where one starts money. I put it towards the first tree and was able to pay for it. I don't think I would have been comfortable paying, I spent around 10,000 on the first tree. I don't think I would have been comfortable if I was just using my personal money for that, Money buys you experiences, it buys you freedom, and it buys you, the ability to be a storyteller. So it's not a bad thing.
Right. It's funny when you say it was $10,000 to make first tree. Technically, it wasn't though, right? Because you spent 5 hours a week, and what's your billable rate?
That's true, and that's
10
something.
Was it 10 hours a week?
I've had this discussion before, and I kind of go, hear me out on this. If you love, I could be wrong, and people in the comments can say if I'm being wrong.
Yeah.
But I do freelance and stuff, but do you expect to get paid when you're loving, you're playing Mario Maker 2 on Switch and you're just making these levels and you're just loving it and you're like, okay, that'll be $30 an hour for my time making Mario Maker levels. I don't know. I loved making the games. It was my passion. The question is,
right. But for me, I've had the question come to me, which is especially when you're full-time game dev, because then your time is really valuable, because it's during hours that you could be spending making money somewhere else.
Yeah,
so 8 to 5 o'clock, what's your billable rate? So for me, I've started to think of a billable rate for me. And the reason why is because when you partner with other development studios, they're going to ask you what your budget is. If you say your budget is 10 grand, they're going to be like, what? So you have to be okay, well, actually, I make $50,000 a year or whatever minimum. That's, and if I spend a year and a half, it's actually going to be, whatever. I can't even do the math there. $75,000, $80,000 or whatever. $75,000. That's interesting. $75,000 for the budget. That's the budget because I am making money, or I would be making money somewhere else if I wasn't making this.
You're working on a project that will generate revenue.
Correct.
That makes sense.
And I learned that from Will Dubé. I think that's how you say his name, Dubé. D-U-B-E. He's in Canada. And he made he's the CEO of Thunder Lotus Games. And he made cool. I think you and I talked about him at one point. He made this game called Jotun. J-O-T-U-N.
The Viking game with the traditional animation.
Yeah.
It looks
correct.
Awesome.
And he was advising me once. This was 2 or 3 years ago, and he said, "Okay, so what's your billable rate?" And I was like, "What? I don't do that. I'm not charging myself." And he's like, "Yeah, you are. I mean, you're paying your mortgage. You're living a life, but at the same time, you're working to pay for that. So what is your billable rate?" And so I had to figure out what's my time worth, and that really helped me realize when I was spending time, being a perfectionist about something, I was like, wait. If I had a client who I was making a game for, would I be doing this? Would I be
that's good.
Obsessing?
That's interesting.
Right. So it's helped me a lot be more, I think the word is objective with who I am and who I am as a game developer and what my project is about. Because if time is money, you got to be a lot more careful with your decision making,
Yeah. And this reminds me of something that I love, celebrating our similarities. Me and Thomas Brush, I think that's cool. We have so much, we have so much, that's similar. But I think the biggest difference between us is you're very experienced and you're very publisher driven. And I tell people exactly the opposite. I say people, you do not need a publisher. Right. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on you're a big cheerleader for publishers and for the smaller publishers. And I feel like I'm the opposite where I'm like, publishers, they're a middleman. You can self-publish on consoles by yourself. You don't need them.
Well, it depends, right? So, and then I would love to hear your opinion, the other side of it. So for me, publishers provide two things, and these are not traditional things. Traditionally, a publisher provides you with marketing, distribution, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. That's not really what a publisher, in my opinion, should be offering you as a game developer. Because you don't really need... you don't really need someone to help you with distribution in quotes. Mm-hmm. That's basically a glittering generality that means nothing now because Steam is handling your distribution. Switch is handling your distribution. Right. If you were selling books, you would need help, but you're not selling books. You're selling digital copies, little keys of your game.
Right.
So what a publisher, for me, where a publisher provides value is they give you money so that you can quit your job so you don't have to be miserable. That's the first part. So 50,000 to like 200 grand, bang, in your account, and you can get started. They're going to take 30% of your revenue or 50% or whatever. But at least you can quit your job and make your game twice as fast.
Full time.
Right.
Yeah.
Full time with so basically you're working for a publisher now, right?
Yeah.
And then what they're going to do is they're going to recoup that. So not only are they going to take 40%, they're also going to recoup it up. So when I launched Pinstripe, I had to recoup a certain amount of money that I can't disclose. Mm-hmm. And it was so painful because it was like 4 months of not making any of that money. But I realized, I was like, well, at least I was able to quit my job and finish this thing, because I wouldn't have finished it otherwise, you know? So that's the first step, or the first reason why I love publishers is just money. Mm-hmm. So basically they're just investors, really. They're not really publishing, they're just investing.
So the big number one thing is like the freedom to focus full time on your game.
Yep. And you get rid of that misery of, and so like now the question is, well, Thomas, why do you want to work with publishers again when you said you were in a really good position financially? Well, I'm only going to work with a publisher if they can provide developers. So in a sense, I'm not really partnering with publishers anymore. I'm partnering with developers that work at a publisher. So that's why I love Serenity Forge. Serenity Forge handles publishing and they handle development if you're willing to negotiate a reasonable revenue share. I've come to discover that sometimes almost half of the revenue is reasonable because they cut your development time down. You don't have to worry about all of these different variables about making a game because they're handling a huge boulder of development that you otherwise couldn't do, you know? So that's my only two reasons.
That makes sense. It's just interesting. There's so many ways to go around it because I like staying independent. Did I tell you I had big publishers approach me for the first tree. One was so big, I don't even know if I can say it, but they do AAA games. And I was so freaked out by it because I was like, oh, this could be life-changing. But then I started thinking about it and how I liked the hobbyist aspect of it and how like I didn't have to answer to anybody. I think what's cool about your deal with Serenity Forge is you're the creative director. Like you have full creative control. Is that right?
So I've signed 3 publisher agreements in the past. One of them I got completely screwed over and I learned my lesson, right? And I had an attorney for all 3. And so the first attorney was like, for the first publishing agreement was like, Thomas, be careful of all of these things. And I ignored him and just signed anyway. That was a terrible agreement. The other two that I signed, my attorney was like, you've got to tell them that you're in complete control of everything. And I said, okay. And so I told the publisher, I told Armor Games and Serenity Forge, and this is fine. They wouldn't mind me telling you. I told them that I was in complete control, and they were like, we trust you. I don't know why.
Wow, that's awesome. That's like a dream team.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. And so it wasn't just control of the art or the game. It was control of the schedule, everything. Mm-hmm. So like, I didn't even have a schedule in the contract. A lot of publishers will be like, and you know, this is fair. If I was a publisher, I would demand this. I would say, look, if I'm going to give you $100 grand, you need to get the game done in a year. Like I can't just sit here and wait for 4 years to get my money back. Mm-hmm. So I get that from a publisher perspective, but the publishers I've worked with, Serenity Forge and Armor Games, I connected really well with the CEOs. Like we're like friends. Like I text Armor Games CEO all the time. Serenity Forge's CEO, his name is Z.
Z is the man. He's awesome. He's so nice.
He's so great, and he's probably we're all kind of the same age, I think. So we sort of are in a similar age group, and we just, at least me and Z, I mean, we connect really well. Jive. We just jive, and so there wasn't a need for him to go, well, I want you to have the game done in a year, and I want, this is what the budget is, and I want to have, a say in the creative direction. He didn't say any of that. He just said, make a great game, Thomas, and here's a developer to help you out. And to me,
That's cool. That's awesome.
That is a really great deal. And I when I signed the deal with Serenity Forge, I was like, wait, is this a bad idea? Because I gave up a good chunk of revenue. And over the years, I learned this was the best thing that could have happened, because we made a really good game with the help of Eric, who was the developer, the coder. Eric programmed an amazing game, and I was able to focus all my attention on what I do well.
Right.
And we saw, we partnered with Apple. We got a front page on Steam for 5 days. We're about to launch on Switch and
that's amazing,
and a few other platforms.
So it just an indie success. That's an indie success by far.
Yeah, and so I want to know your perspective on things, though. Like, do you feel like if a publisher would have said, "I want you to have full creative control," would you have considered signing with them?
Oh man, that's an interesting question. I'm thinking about how it worked out for you and how it's been great. Here's something I do want to say. This is to everybody listening. If it's your very first game and you're just getting out of, you're just finally entering this whole new world of game development, and you get a bunch of publishers that you've never heard of saying, "Hey, let me help you with marketing and publishing." Yes, I would say 99.9% that is not a deal you want to make.
Yes.
And I would say you have an awesome partnership with Serenity Forge. And it sounds awesome. I might be tainted by, when I was working on Home is Where One Starts, countless publishers saying, "Oh, yeah, you need us. Like, you're not going to succeed without us." And they just, all they do is siphon. It's all they do is they slap their name on it on the Steam page, and they siphon 40% of your funds for no reason. But what you did is you made games first, and you made a name for yourself. You had Unity fly out, make a film about you, and you finished games. That's the way to get a publisher. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
What I would say is, when you're first starting off, making your very first small games, I don't think there's any reason to get a publisher at the beginning.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point and a really good perspective. I always say, me and my wife talk about this. What I talk about work a lot, and she probably gets annoyed.
Like my wife. Yeah. Okay.
But when we talk, I always say, I'm just so lucky to have a really dedicated YouTube audience, because if I ever get screwed over by a publisher, they're not going to be happy. My backers, people who got my back. And so I always say, if you're gonna partner up with a company that you don't know, be sure you've got some ammunition.
Yeah, definitely.
Because they do. I promise you, they do. They've got money. They've got a team of people.
They've got lawyers.
They've got lawyers. They've got everybody. And this is not true for Serenity Forge or Armor Games at all. But I can speak to having experience with another publisher where, behind closed doors, like, I'm in South Carolina, they're off in California or somewhere, or where were they? They were somewhere in the Midwest. And I knew that they were talking about what they were going to do to screw me over. And they didn't see it that way. They just saw it as business as usual.
Yeah.
But what they were doing to screw over an 18-year-old, well, I didn't know any of that. And so I wasn't talking to them. And so they had all this ammunition against me, this power. And so it's really important for indie developers to have power behind them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be cash. It definitely can be a lawyer that you paid $4,000 to help you out. But it can also be in the form of a social media following, which is so huge. And you're doing that right now, and you're killing it. You're doing a really good job. And I want all of my all of the people watching this or listening to this podcast to know that you can't put a price tag on an army that supports you.
Wow, that's cool. No, I'm seeing the vision, and just you know this about me. I suck at programming, so the idea of having someone you trust, and that's the hard part too. You're like, who can you really trust? But But having someone, if you found that person and a team that like supports you and got your back, and did Serenity Forge help with the Apple thing, by the way?
I can't talk about that.
Okay. But they probably helped. They helped in a lot of ways, I'm sure.
They helped. They here's what I'll say. Conversations that I don't want to have, I don't have to have.
That's the life.
And I'm learning that it's almost like what you would think of as a writer. Like I always wanted to be like basically what a writer in my head was, walking around in pajamas smoking a pipe. And you just go and you sit on your typewriter and you write for a couple hours. Then you go outside and sit on a hammock. And then, you get up out of bed at 3 a.m., have an idea, write it down. And other than the pipe, which that would be awesome. Other than the pipe, that's my life now, is I get to walk around in my pajamas, come up with fun ideas. I don't have to talk to anybody. I do YouTube and stuff.
That's the life.
And I mean, come on, though. I think you've got it too, right? Things are working well for you.
I'm such an introvert, and
yeah,
but also you get a little lonely. It's this weird. It's the paradox of game development where you're just, I don't know. It's the paradox of being an introverted entrepreneur, of a business person. That's what it is. But no, you're right.
Yeah.
Like it's what I never thought it could happen. I really didn't.
Yeah,
that's why I kept my job. I was like, oh, well, there's no way this is real that my Steam launch did well. So I'm just going to keep my job because how could this ever be a full-time thing? But it does happen. And sometimes I get bummed that there's so much negativity. And I know it's people trying to protect other people, because it's crowded. There's a lot of indie games out there. There really is. But at the same time, I have this impression that it's easier to make a successful indie game than it is to be a successful rock band or write a successful book on Amazon, or to make a successful indie film that actually makes enough money. Like, all the arts are crowded. They are. And I think it's easier with indie games because there's a lot to learn. You have to, not only are you doing art, but you have to do like code and like sound effect mixing. And and I love that. I love all the different hats, and it is hard. And I know like there's a lot of negativity about, indie games. Yeah, right. You're stupid for pursuing that, but it's possible. Right. There are success cases, and it happens to even really small developers. You just got to put in the time and put in the passion, and then put in the discipline.
I totally agree with you. I don't know if you've learned anything about having kids, but like I've learned that, my wife taught me this, is we would have a problem where like Liv, our daughter, wasn't sleeping for the first 6 months, which is like normal, right?
Hardest thing in the universe.
And you and I will be experiencing that in October for sure.
Yeah, right there with you, brother.
But my wife was like, well, it doesn't have to be this way. Let's just research and let's learn and let's take a course. And this is a great segue into you. Like, you have this course, Game Dev Unlocked, link in the description. And it's a little bit of money for potentially a career changing path for my audience. And the same is true with having kids or any life decision, is stop trying to figure things out completely alone. Stop pretending that you have all the answers and go take a course. Go learn from other people. Or in my case, my favorite thing to do is just get to know people in the industry, because they're going to tell you the secrets. They're going to tell you, hey, there's money over here, or hey, you should go talk to this guy because he can connect you with these people. And then those people connect you with those people. Like, I would have never met PewDiePie had I not first reached out to Tom Fulp.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Oh, that's cool.
I reached out to Tom Fulp, the creator of Newgrounds, and I said, can you be my mentor for a couple weeks and just tell me about games? And I was 22, and I was working a desk job, and I remember talking to him on the phone on a hot summer day in my car, with the car off, sweating bullets, talking to Tom Fulp.
Can't imagine the feeling after that.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, this guy is really successful. He created newgrounds.com. And then he messaged me 3 years later, and said, hey, I don't know if you care, but Felix, PewDiePie, wants to do voice acting. Would you be willing to let him do voice acting for your game? And now, PewDiePie and I have a very mild, like small email relationship. And that was because I reached out to people, you know,
Yes.
I reached out to people.
Yes. And you're right. And my life changed because I reached out to you. And this is why I try to answer all my emails, even when there's a million emails. But I was a new, scared indie game developer, hobbyist. And I emailed you. I actually looked it up recently because I was like, what did I say again? It was in 2015 or 2016. And I asked you about the South by Southwest game festival. And I was like, hey, man, I'm a big fan. Thomas, you're awesome.
I don't remember this at all. I don't remember this at all, man.
This is the first email I sent you.
Because you keep saying you were a fan, but I'm like, I remember being a fan of David. So I think it was reversed.
Yeah, I emailed you asking questions about South by Southwest because they invited me. And I was like, should I do this? That's a lot of money. I don't have any money. But it'd be cool to show it. And I asked you, I was like, you showed Pinstripe at South by Southwest. Did you like it? And you were so, and you were nice. You were encouraging. You gave helpful information. and then, so I appreciate that. Thank you, Thomas.
No, thanks.
And that connection.
Thanks for being nice.
And then later, you'd ask me questions and I loved helping you. But then you introduced me to Matt Ty, we talked about, who helped me with consoles. And so I'm not over exaggerating this. Like this connection with you, like, and it's not like, I hate the term networking. I don't like that. Like, I want to talk to people. I don't either. I want to talk to people I admire and because I want to get to know them because they're really talented and they're nice.
Well, it's funny.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
And you just showed me Matt Ty and you introduced me to him. And it without exaggeration, it changed my life. So I owe a lot to you, Thomas, and I appreciate it. And you're right. Like it's those connections of like good people that can change your life.
Right. It totally is. And I think networking is a bad word because I was actually on Discord last night on my phone and me and my wife were like in bed watching TV. And she looked at me and she said, I thought you said you were going to be working on your phone, after 5 o'clock. Cause I have this problem where I keep working when I'm on my phone. She was like, I wish you would do that. And she said, who are you talking to? I think I was messaging you. And I scrolled through, I went, no, I'm not working. And I scrolled through my phone and showed her all of my Discord friends. And they are my work. We're also working together, all of my friends. But we're also friends. And so it's all very friendly relationships with people who could make you a lot of money as a game developer at the same time, right? Yeah. So it's really about just being friends with people in the industry. Now, obviously, you want to be friends with people who don't have any connections, but you want to try and form friendships with people who do have connections because they're going to make your life a lot easier. And when I say quote unquote make you a lot of money, I'm being hyperbolic, but sure. Is that how you say that? Hyperbolic. But like it could very well mean that you hit a pocket of income that you needed desperately because you knew the right person to steer you to that pocket of income. You're
totally right. Like I just love talking to people who have a passion for this. Doesn't matter where they are on their journey. And you talked to me even though you were like, who's this guy? I don't know, but I'll help him out. And that's why I answer every email I can. Maybe a few have slipped through the cracks, but it's just it's exciting. It's exciting helping people, but your time is finite. Your time is finite. I understand.
Well, I was curious. I wanted to ask you a question. So I've had people on YouTube go, if Thomas was a successful game developer, he wouldn't be teaching it.
Oh, I hate that. Don't like that argument at all.
I'm like, I don't want to show you my bank account, but I could prove to you that I'm doing quite well with revenue from games, but I also enjoy teaching it.
It's a straw man because I don't need to do this. Like it'd be nice to diversify, just a little bit of side income, but I'm doing this because I love teaching and I love sharing with people what I learned because I want to help people. Or else I wouldn't answer emails every morning for hours. I'm not getting paid for that. I do it because I love it.
Let me know next year if you're still doing that. Because I stopped doing that.
No, it's got our time. I wish I had clones of me to do all my work.
I know.
But yeah, you got to do it. You got to keep your sanity. But I try my best to at least answer a sincere question that I get.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, I think let's wrap up here. If you're cool with that.
Yeah, this has been great.
For hours. I can talk for hours. Do you want to sort of make a big pitch for Game Dev Unlocked? Because I'll say this first. Again, to my audience, link is in the description. David was nice enough to give me portions of his course for the launch of Neversong. And I literally just took that course and followed the steps. And obviously there's luck involved and your game has to be good. But I took those steps, especially when it comes to marketing Neversong, and I put them into practice. And lo and behold, I got exactly what David told me I was going to get, which is five days front paged on Steam, which is was the whole goal of the steps he gave me. So I just recommend to my audience to, and by the way, this isn't sponsored. This is actually a negative sponsorship because I want to make my own course. I want to make my own course one day. I don't want David to steal my customers.
I was going to ask if you had an online course and it was like, the videos and the lessons, I'd buy that in a heartbeat. I really would. I think a lot of people, I think a lot of your followers would.
Probably a lot of people have asked for it, but for now, I think it's important that my audience consider the idea that. How much is the course, by the way?
I think.
Do you have a price?
I'm gonna have a coupon code, and I can give it to you in the description.
Okay.
I'm still. You know what? It's just me. Like I'm just figuring stuff out. I may change the price, but it is. I'll probably around $300 to $400.
Okay. So, and I've by the way, I've checked out this course, and it's ridiculously high value. It's not like some small Udemy course. It's really, really good. Here's the thing, and I'm talking to my audience here. It's one of those things where, is it worth the risk of spending a couple $100 to learn the things that most game developers don't learn? And here's the thing. Here's the second thing. A lot of these YouTube channels, and a lot of them are amazing. They're great content, and I actually use them all the time for tutorials and stuff. But a lot of these YouTube channels have never released a game. And so for you've specifically released a game, not only released a game, but made plenty of income off of it to go full time. And you've basically put all of those secrets, essentially a mentorship program, into this course. Is that correct?
Yeah. Where do I even start? I've put so much time and money into it, and some people are like, oh, why would I, and you could just Google stuff for free and learn. That's how I did it. But yeah, I put a lot of time and money to make this the best it could. And so it's mostly, there's a private Discord server and all of us are together and we're like sharing each other's games, and I do feedback Fridays with the students' games. And it's fun. Awesome. It's fun. And it isn't about the money. Like, that's why I'm doing YouTube as well. I'm going to be putting tons of free stuff on there. This is something to like take you to the next level, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, you get free Steam keys, and we do case studies. I've built out this system. Like, I don't know. I'm really proud of it. And but I don't want people to feel like, oh, the FOMO, like, oh, I gotta join the program and pay that money and stuff.
No.
And there's tons of I love helping everybody, and I'm going to be doing stuff on YouTube for free. So, if the school is awesome. Like, if you guys want to check it out, that'd mean the world to me. If you don't, then if you just subscribe to Game Dev Unlocked on YouTube, that would be amazing. I would so appreciate that, because I love making these videos and people watching them. It's exciting. Right. I love it.
It is a lot of fun, YouTube. And, I was actually thinking yesterday, I saw some of your videos are doing really well, and I was pissed. The algorithm
picked it up, because those videos
of course
are
it did,
old.
Because you're David. You always hit the algorithm with things.
It just was weird. Those videos, like, no one was watching them for 6 months, and then, dude, that could be another discussion on its own. Dependency on algorithms.
Let's talk about algorithms and how different platforms. But to my audience, I want to say, that I was pissed that you were doing so well. Because I was like, man, how did he pull this off? Because it took a while for me. Maybe it didn't. Maybe my memory isn't serving me correctly, but I was, and I'm being hyperbolic, or like I'm joking about being pissed, but it was kind of like, it was like, David will probably have 1 million subscribers, and I'll have 200. I'll have 200,000.
Who knows?
Your content is very precise, I think is a good word. Sometimes I speak in generalities and abstractions because I'm lazy, but your content is like bang, 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 bang. Like, these are all the things you need to do. Specifics, especially your online course, very specific. And that is the kind of content, especially from someone who's done well on Steam and console. That is the kind of content that YouTube needs to help people learn how to make games. So I think your channel is definitely going to be separated out from the rest, because, again, you've made a game and you've done it well. That's very rare.
You have too, man. And, I love your YouTube channel, and I'm just, I'm trying stuff out. I'm excited to do YouTube just because I've always wanted to. But, man, you also, like, I love the content you make. And I was reminded of something, was like, this is one of the best parts of indie game development, is like, we're a community and we just support each other so much. This is like this is my last story. I went to GDC and I was speaking, so I was like sick to my stomach. I was pretty nervous. But then Unity tweeted from their official account like, "Hey, we're bringing some influencers, some game dev influencers," and you were on the list.
Yeah.
And I was so excited. I was like, "Oh, maybe I can meet." I was with Matt as well, Matt Ty. I was like, "Oh, maybe we can meet Thomas. It'd be so great to meet him in person." And so I go to the park outside the Moscone Convention Center. And then Brackies was there, and and those guys, and my wife asks, like, "Hey, where's Thomas Brush?" And then he's like, "Oh yeah, he couldn't make it. He just pulled out last minute." I was like, "Oh, I'm really bummed about that." But here's the thing: I checked your YouTube channel. It was right then during GDC, and that's when the PewDiePie video went live. Yeah. And I was like, I said I was in the hotel room. I was like, "Oh my gosh, Thomas Brush, he's getting like 100,000 subscribers in a day." I was so excited for you. And I just was, maybe I was a little pissed too. I was pissed. I was pissed / really happy for you.
I've had the sense, I don't know how much you can sense through Discord, but like a lot of my friends who do YouTube, I'm like, I wonder if there's man, you got so lucky with PewDiePie.
It was work.
PewDiePie, which it was really hard work, but man, I was obviously getting a reply from PewDiePie.
You made a game saying, in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
unbelievable. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry I wasn't there. I really wanted to go. I did go to San Francisco. I did go to GDC. It's just I didn't go to that event.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
So I was there. Me and my wife were there, and Unity flew us out there, and they gave us an amazing hotel.
Nice,
so,
man.
That's like the one little rocks. Yeah, that's like rock star right there. But the rest is greasy Philly cheesesteak life. It's sitting alone in your office making games.
But it's cool. Like, we're all friends, and I like to think of the people who watch my videos, like the ones that are nice, not the mean ones on Reddit give me death threats. But the ones we can be kind of part of a family, and that's what I want to do with the school. That's what I want to do with YouTube, and I think you've done a great job of that. So I want to try to recreate that.
Well, thank you, and I think you're doing a great job. Your channel is going to explode, and all of my subscribers go over subscribe to David's channel. It is really, honestly, again, this is not sponsored by you. You're not going to give me anything in return. I'm telling my audience this is really good content. And so
thank you. That's so nice. I appreciate it.
So yeah, no problem, man. You want to wrap it up?
Yeah, this is great. Thanks, Thomas, for having me here. You're one of my game dev heroes. And if there's anything if there's anything I can do to help you, just let me know. Good luck with the family. It sounds like life's going really well, and I'm so excited that Never Song launched well.
Yeah. So, thanks for your help with that, man. You were really helpful. Thanks for chatting. This was good.
Yeah. All right. See ya.